Welcome back. We had started looking at the different types of tissues found in plants, and we had covered two of the important sections. For example, we had looked at epidermal tissue, and then we had looked at the ground tissue, the tissue that fills the space. We had looked at parenchyma, big cells, food stored inside them with thin walls. Collenchyma, which has walls that are thickened in corners, and sclerenchyma, which had walls that were thickened all the way around. The last type of tissue we need to look at is the conducting tissue. And you can think of this is like your arteries and veins. It carries substances around your body. And in plants, there are two different types. One carries water and one carries food. And we are going to have a look at those two different types of conducting or vascular tissue. So the first one is called xylem. And this is a picture taken under a microscope, and that is a xylem vessel, and the hole in the middle would be where it transports water. Water's got to go from the roots up the plant. The leaves use the water to make food, and the food has to go back down to the root. So the other type of vascular or conducting tissue is found here, and that is called phloem, and its job is to transport dissolved organic foods. So one transports substances up the stem, the other transports substances down the stem. And we're looking at the first one now, which is called xylem. Now, you can think of xylem as straws joined end to end, and they form very, very long tubes. It's a bit like you joining 4 or 5 straws together and drinking cool drink out of a glass that is on the floor. To be able to transport substances, they're cells, but they don't have any cross walls because the walls would simply get in the way. They have no cell contents because the cell contents, nucleus, vacuole, things like that, they would simply get in the way. They also have walls that are thickened to prevent collapse. And this picture here shows us that thing there. Okay, that is a xylem vessel. There's another one, and there is another one. And you can see that they have thickenings around them to try and keep them open. It's a bit like if you've sat on a straw or stood on a straw, it's very difficult to suck anything up through a straw because the straw has actually collapsed. So the main function is water movement, but because they have thickened walls, they also carry out the job of support. And they would be found in all parts of the plant, the roots to absorb, the stems to move up, and the leaf veins to take the water to the cells. This is another microscopic picture of xylem vessels in the stem. Okay, and here I'm outlining in blue. You can see there's one xylem vessels, and it's got thickenings to keep it open. This is another xylem vessel. It has thickenings to keep it open. And here are diagrams of those 3 different types, or those 4 different types of xylem vessels, just to show the fact that they have different types of thickenings. Then, to get food from the leaf back down to the roots, because the roots, they have to live, they need food, is a special type of tissue called phloem. They're also elongated and they have thin walls, but the cells don't join together. They've got these little things between them. And those are called sieve plates. So they are joined end to end to form long tubes called sieve tubes, and they have cross walls with pores, and those pores are called sieve plates. So that substances can move down through the sieve tubes and they can pass through those sieve plates. The question now is, if they had a nucleus here, what would happen to that nucleus as substances move down? That nucleus would be pushed out of the cell. So it's not practical for the phloem cells to have nuclei, so what they do is they've got little cells next to them. And those little cells are called companion, so they have no nuclei, and next to them they have companion cells with nuclei, and the companion cells basically control what is happening in the sieve tube. Their function is to transport food, and of course they would also be found in the same parts, the roots, the stems, and the leaf veins, because the food's got to go back down. This is a photograph taken under a microscope of xylem and phloem. You can clearly see the big xylem vessels here with their very, very thick walls. And if you look, they kind of form almost like a little cross. This is found in a root. So this is where the water would be moving up the stem. This section here, okay, that is phloem. And if you look at the xylem cells, they're actually very big and you can clearly see their thick walls. The phloem cells have got thin walls, but what gives it away is these little cells between. That's a sieve tube element, and that is a companion cell. So you can identify phloem quite easily because it's got biggish sieve tubes and much, much smaller companion cells. That's the best way to identify phloem. This is a comparison of xylem and phloem to show the difference between them. First of all, these arrows show that in xylem, the water always flows upwards. It also shows that the walls are quite thick and there are no cross walls because the cross walls would simply get in the way. This is phloem, okay, and phloem has a problem because food travels down to the roots, but at the beginning of spring, food also has to travel back up to the buds so that new leaves can be formed. So in phloem, we have at certain times of the year substances flowing upwards, and at certain times of the year substances flowing downwards, and that is why you need those little companion cells, so there is some type of control over the movement of substances. So what we've now looked at is we've looked at the three main different types of permanent tissue: epidermal, ground, and vascular tissue, with all the different types of cells that are found in each category. I hope this has helped you understand what's going on. It's now time for an ad break.